تولى العمر في سهو وفي لهو وفي خسر.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبعد. I want to thank you all for being here in attendance today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. About the institute that's been set up by the brothers here, Furqan St. Albans Institute, Al-Furqan Academy. Every course that's going to be run in this institute by the brothers is going to be a 2-week course. In 2 weeks, a particular book on a particular topic is going to be completed bi'iznillahi ta'ala alayh. Some of the topics, and there's an entire leaflet outside by the door, the brothers have informed me that some of the topics that are going to be looked at or going to be explored include fiqh, tahara, the fiqh of tahara, the fiqh of janazah, the fiqh of ibadah, the fiqh of worship, of fasting, of the 5 pillars, etc. Involves Aqeedah. MashaAllah. It involves Aqeedah. It involves Aqeedah. It involves Ulum al-Quran, the explanation of the Quran, some of the principles concerning the Quran, include correct Aqeedah. They think that their Aqeedah is correct, but their manhaj is either the methodology of the Khariji, the extremist, or it's the methodology of a person who speaks ill of the Sahabatul Kiram, or a person who speaks ill of our mothers, or a person who thinks that it's okay for a person to prostrate in front of a grave, etc., etc., etc. And behind all of this, he tries to mention an ayah of the Quran or a hadith to the way of the Salaf, the Sahaba, then those that follow them, and then those that follow them, how they understand these evidences. So this course will be indispensable. Indispensable for whom? For people like me who are speaking to you. Why? They're level 1 courses. Right at the level that people like myself and yourself maybe need them. Level 1. Easy for us to understand so that we can go home, tell our parents, our mother, our father, our sisters, our brothers. What's the purpose of learning? Maqsood al-ilm al-amal, the purpose of knowledge is to act upon it, isn't it? Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Abad Hafizullah says that the purpose of your knowledge is to act upon it. So the reason we're learning about these things is to act upon them, then to invite others to that way. In the best of manners. Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idati al hasan wa jadilhum billati ahsan. In the best of manners. If we can't tell our own children, our own siblings, our own brothers, our own sisters, our own parents about the correct Aqeedah, about the correct manhaj, the correct methodology, about the Sunnah, then this is something that may be an evidence against us on the day of judgment. So that's a very brief introduction, very brief indeed, to the academy or the institute or the online learning that has been set up. And I want to really home in on one thing. Just because it's online, it's not an excuse. I come from so far away. Allah knows what time I left today. But it's not an excuse for someone like myself, a weak person, yourselves, to just think that let's just stay at home and listen to it. No, there's no excuse. We're going to do that with these durus, and then tomorrow we're going to do that for the salah in the masjid. I might as well just pray at home. And then the day after we'll do it for Jum'ah. And then the day after we'll do it for Eid. We won't bother to even go to the Eid salah. This is what happens. The Imaan, it deteriorates. So, brothers, I urge you and sisters to come here in person and to benefit for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to speak the truth and then to act upon that. The text that we're going to be going through, this is actually something new for me. When I normally explain this text, it takes almost 1.5 to 2 years. Brothers who are already attending some of these classes that I do privately, they'll know about this. So this is something very novel and very new for me. To explain a text of a great Imam, Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, the Alama, the Mufassir, the Usooli, the great Muhaddith, the great Faqih of this Ummah, and to explain it in a relatively short period of no more than 2 weeks. But ala kulli hal, because this is level 1 and because we're going to take it nice and easy, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah gives someone like me the tawfiq and the himma and the ability to convey to you what I need to convey to you. Ameen. So let's begin with the text then. If we, it's incumbent in the sense that hopefully you won't be punished if you don't do this, but it's incumbent in the sense that have the book with you and a pen and a paper, so that when I go through the text, that you write it down. The one who writes down, his precision and his remembering is greater than the one who does not write down. Take your notes, even if it's on your phone or your iPad or whatever it is, and have the matan, the text, with you. So we're going to begin, inshallah ta'ala, by navigating the text. And actually, if you go right towards the end of the... I want to start off actually with this. Importance of Aqeedah. Why are we learning this text? Importance of Aqeedah. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi, in another book of his, the explanation of the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, he actually explains to us in that particular text the importance of learning the correct Aqeedah. This word Aqeedah first, and the meaning of Aqeedah. In very simple terms. If someone says to you, is this term mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah? Say yes, absolutely. Have no hesitation, yes. Tawheed is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. Aqeedah is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. There's no doubt about it. Manhaj is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. These are not novel or innovative terms. Very important point. The term Aqeedah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 80 something, 86, 87, 88, 89, look at these ayat, one of these ayat. It is what? Aqeedah is something which is firmly binded in your heart, the way you'd enter into a contract, something which is firmly binding. It binds you, it's tied up. And as I say, it's mentioned throughout the kitab and the Sunnah, and you can look up the reference that I've given you in relation to some issues of entering into contractual agreements or taking oaths, making vows. This term Aqeedah is mentioned in that way, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says the word Aqatul Imaan, those who are taking their oaths, they adhere to their oaths, they adhere to their vows. They don't break that contract that they make. Yani yufuna bin nadar, they keep their vows. That contract that they make of marriage is called an aqd, a nikah. You're firmly tied into that. You're either married to that person or you're not. There's no confusion. Unless you're from a particular persuasion, there's no confusion for Ahl Sunnah. So Aqeedah is like that. It's absolutely set. And it's from those things which must be established, therefore, from the Kitab and the Sunnah. It must be established from the Kitab and the Sunnah. There's no room for your intellect, my intellect in Aqeedah. I believe this, you think that, he thinks that, his opinion is that. La. Aqeedah is absolutely firmly set. No room for maneuvering. If anyone says to you that the companions, they differed in Aqeedah, she hasn't understood what Aqeedah is. They didn't differ in La ilaha illallah. They didn't differ in the three types of Tawheed, which we'll look at inshallah today, hopefully. They didn't differ in the fact that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last and final messenger. وَأَنَا خَاتَمُ النَّبِيِّينَ لَا نَبِيَّ بَعْدِ. They didn't differ in any of this. So this is what we're going to study today, inshallah ta'ala. The Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, especially specifically as it relates to the issues of Imaan, the 6 pillars of Imaan, which we'll come on to bi'idhnillahi ta'ala alayh. As time went on, and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he passed away, and the era of the companions continued, innovations began to occur in this ummah. The extremists, the Khawarij, they appeared. They corrupted the Aqeedah. Every innovation that appeared in this ummah, every bid'ah, new thing. The word bid'ah, the easy way to understand it is something for which there is ghayr mithal sabiq, something for which there's no precedent for it. There's no precedent for it. There's no example for it in the Kitab and the Sunnah prior to that. It's something new. So the Khawarij, the extremists came and they added in. The Qadariyah, they came under the sect, those who denied the Qadr of Allah, and they added into the religion. So they corrupted Aqeedah. What are the roots that lead to the corruption of Aqeedah? There are 12. There are 12 roots, at least, that corrupt one's Aqeedah. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala alayh, he mentions those, as does Ibn Uthaymeen. There's a book called Tariqatul Hijratain, but we won't go into that in detail. This class is not for that. Following desires, following opinions, ilmul kalam, philosophy, philosophizing over the text, misinterpreting the text. Taqlidul a'ma, قالوا ما وجدنا عليه آباءنا أولو كان آباءهم لا يأكلون شيئا ولا يهتدون. I won't follow what Allah and Rasul say, but my forefathers used to do this. This is a destruction of one's Aqeedah. Having doubts, shak about the Aqeedah. فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم خرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. No hesitation. So Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, in this other book, he mentions some of the important factors of why we learn Aqeedah. To save ourselves from the fire of hell. An-najah min an-nar. To have entry into paradise. May Allah give us entry into paradise and save us from the fire of hell. We don't want to even see the fire of hell. So that we avoid all those things that would corrupt our deen, that would make Allah angry with us. We avoid all of that. All of this is part of Aqeedah. So from the fruits of Aqeedah, if you were to summarize it in one sentence, it would be that a person is saved from destruction in this world and in the next world by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becoming pleased with him. That's one of the greatest fruits of Aqeedah. وَرِضْوَانُ مِنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. Wanting to please Allah. Allah becoming pleased with you is the greatest of all things. If the Aqeedah is correct, the methodology will be correct. The implementation of the Sunnah will be correct. So from the ahdaf, the objectives of Aqeedah and the purposes of Aqeedah and why we study these texts, I think it's really important that we keep that in mind. This is the difference between paradise and hellfire. Fariqun fil Jannah or Fariqun fil Sa'ir. There are two parties, one in paradise and one in the fire of hell. There's no manzila bayna manzilatayn. One foot in paradise, one foot in hellfire. None of that business. Some people believe this, by the way. Either paradise or the fire of hell. Imma shakir, imma kafura. We have to make the choice. Path of righteousness or path of wretchedness. May Allah save us from that. This is why you're sitting here. This is why I'm sitting here. In order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So page 4 to 5 of the text of the Shaykh. Page 4 to 5. The Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi, he begins to discuss the deen of al-Islam. The deen of al-Islam. And he mentions a few ayat in there. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islama deena. Today, which day? This ayah is revealed when? Which day? Today, what date is it today? 23rd? 22nd. 22nd. Does this ayah mean 27 October 2022? It is 2022, right? No. Who thinks it means it today? Which day? The day this ayah was revealed on Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yawm al-Arafah. The companions are all around him. The hadith in Sahih Muslim. Bab kayfa hajjat an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How the Prophet sallallahu performed the Hajj, the farewell pilgrimage. See, he looked to the right, he looked to the right, and left, he looked behind him. There were companions everywhere. Everywhere. And he was, alayhi salatu wasalam, mounted on his camel. And he announced that to the people, Halmu bit tawheed. He said, proclaim the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sahih Muslim. Proclaim the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Aqeedah. This is Salafiyah. Start off with tawheed. Let the people know what the definition of Islam is. What Islam will you have if you have no tawheed, if you have no belief in Allah. And then they began to say, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, and the hadith continues. Allah, you alone. No partners. The deen of al-Islam. Completed at the time of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So the Shaykh, he's saying, and Ibn Kathir and others, they mention also, Imam Sadi, Ibn Jarir, Tabari and others, the scholars of tafsir, they generally mention about this ayah. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu's hadith. I know the day it was revealed, why it was revealed, the moment it was revealed, what we were doing. Yani, the specificness. The great detail, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Bukhari Muslim, he mentions why this ayah, when it was revealed, who was there? We learn a very important nukta, a very important point there, brothers. Something which sometimes we neglect when we look at these narrations. Our salaf, our companions, this is one to put a border around actually. They didn't just tell us the general issues of the religion. They told us the precise details. They told us the aam and the khas. They told us the general things and the restricted specific things. They didn't leave a stone unturned for you or me. Why would he say, I know the day it was revealed. Who was revealed upon? Who was there? And then a Yahudi comes and he says that if we had this ayah be revealed to us, we would have made this day a day of celebration. This ayah is so magnificent. We would have made this day a day of festivity. Did the Prophet ﷺ make this day a day of festivity? Now, did the Prophet ﷺ make this day, the day this ayah was revealed, as a day of Eid, as a day of celebration? Anyone who says yes, put your hands up. Who's that? Who put their hands up? No. No, he didn't. We learn a very important point. The Prophet ﷺ, the companions around him, they knew the reason why it was revealed, the magnitude of what was revealed. One of the greatest blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something that even the non-Muslim acknowledges that this is something that you people should make as a day of Eid for yourself, a day of celebration for yourself. But the Prophet ﷺ did not make it as a day of Eid, although he could have. He could have. Do you know any Muslim today that celebrates this day as Yawmul Eid? No. Why are you then celebrating the Prophet's birthday? Where did you get that from? Understand the points I'm making. I'm really just skimming over them, really. Where did you get that from? All these arguments you hear, brothers and sisters. Oh, he's a mercy of Allah. Who denies that? He was born on a Monday, etc., etc. We thank Allah by celebrating his birthday. Why are you not celebrating this day as an Eid? Even the non-Muslims wanted to celebrate it. So this concept of adding into the religion, as you'll see the Shaykh mentions a bit further on, it's something which is absolutely forbidden. The door's been completely locked on them. So the deen of al-Islam, Ibn Kathir mentions 2 points. It's perfect in every way and it's complete in every way. This ayah shows that deen of al-Islam, it's perfect in every way and complete in every way. Allah completed it, Allah perfected it. Something which is perfect has no need to be added into. Something which is completed has no need to be added into. Something which is perfect requires no further perfection. Because the one who perfected it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What kind of perfection are you going to give? وَلَا تَكْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Don't go beyond that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give you any knowledge concerning. So this deen is perfect in every way and it is complete in every way. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned in an authentic hadith, and some of the companions also mentioned, the likes of Abu Darda and others, ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, the companions generally, concerning this ayah and generally the deen of al-Islam. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, أَحَبُّ الدِّينِ إِلَى اللَّهِ الْحَنِيفِيَّةُ السَّمْحَةُ. The narrator is Abu Darda and others also, that the most beloved religion, deen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the deen which is the most easygoing and sincere in the worship of Allah alone. The deen which is the most easygoing. Shaykh Ibn Baz and others, they make some ta'liqat, some notes on this. If we have time, I'll mention 1 or 2 points. The deen which is the most easygoing and which is done sincerely in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bukhari and Muslim. That's what deen of al-Islam is. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, he says, the deen of al-Islam is what? That you have absolute belief in the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Istislamu bi tawheed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have complete submission to the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you make ijtinab, you stay away completely from all forms of shirk and all those things that lead you to shirk. Some people translate that last part as and the people of shirk. That's a general translation. There's a lot more to that. All those things that lead you to shirk, that lead you to disobedience, that lead you to hypocrisy, that lead you to kufr, staying away from them, it's the deen of al-Islam. It's the deen of al-Islam. Man qala la ilaha illallah wa kafara ma yu'budu min dunillah dakhala al-jannah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah and he stays away from that which is worshipped other than Allah, he will go to paradise. Allah make us from amongst those people. Allahumma ja'alna minhum. That's what the deen of al-Islam is. An-nafyu wal-ithbatu. Negation and affirmation. Negation and affirmation. Two pillars. Two pillars. He negates that which is worshipped other than Allah, and he affirms only the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can't have the deen of al-Islam and say that I'm a person of al-Islam. Whether you are or not, it's not for me or anyone else to judge. Allah will judge us all. يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. We're going to all stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day. But he says he's on the deen of al-Islam and he doesn't stay away from shirk. He enjoys shirk. He is very happy with shirk. He's pleased with shirk. What's the answer then in the grave? Ma dinuka, what's your religion? My religion was Islam, but I enjoyed some shirk too. That's not an answer. So these are things that we have to think about. Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala anhu. There's a saying from him in the Musannaf of Imam ibn Abi Shaybah. I don't have the reference in front of me. This great illustrious companion. A fascinating narration from him. عليكم بالسبيل والسنة فإنه ليس من عبد الله السبيل والسنة ذكر من ففاضت أيناه من هشية الله فتمسه النار. He said that it is incumbent on you to cling on to the straight path and the sunnah. This is what Islam is. To cling on to the straight path and the sunnah. Because the fire won't touch a person who follows the straight path and the sunnah. Pay attention. You must cling on to the sirat mustaqim and the sunnah, the straight path and the sunnah. Because the fire won't touch the person who follows the straight path and the sunnah. How am I and you going to get to that straight path unless we go back to the sunnah? This is manhaj now, this is methodology. And how am I or you going to understand what the sunnah is unless we go back to Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali and Abu Hurairah and Abdullah ibn Umar and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and others? And how are we going to get to the companions unless we go back to the tabi'een? Muhammad ibn Sirin, Ibn Sayyib, others. How are we going to get to the tabi'een unless we go back to those that came after them, the tabi'een? That's what the salaf is. That's what the word salaf means. The Qurun al-Mufaddala, the blessed generations. You can't understand what the straight path is unless you go back to these people. That's what deen of al-Islam is. How can you complete your religion? How can you understand your religion unless you go back to these people, the salaf? So he is saying, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, cling on to the straight path and the sunnah. In the Surah Al-Fatiha, after saying, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, O Allah, guide us to the straight path. You don't just stop there. You say, Sirat al-ladhina anamta alayhim, ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim, wal-dallin. The path of those that you are pleased with, the path of those that you have honored, the path of those that you have blessed, and not the path of those that have angered you, not the path of those that you have cast away. How are you going to get to the straight path unless you take the path of those that Allah has honored, the path of those that Allah is pleased with, the path of those that Allah has favored? And who are those people? Pick up any page of the Quran and you'll see it. Any page, Allah would favor him. And that person would become like a tree whose leaves are dry. Yani this one who holds on to the deen, we're talking about the deen of al-Islam, holds on to the straight path and the sunnah. كَمَثَلِ الشَّجَرَ يَمْسِي يُرْكُهَا. Yani he'll be like a tree which is out there in the wind and its leaves have dried, and when the wind blows, those dry leaves, they fall off. That person who's on the deen of al-Islam truly, Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala is saying that those leaves which fall off are like the sins of that person. The sins of that person would flow off. Every time he goes through some kind of calamity, some kind of difficulty, It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserving his religion for him, getting him closer to Allah. Because the definition of the word fitna, it's Ibn al-Qayyim and Ibn Uthaymeen say it's everything that distances you from Allah. Everything that distances you from Allah is fitna. Sometimes it could be our children, it could be our wealth, it could be our own selves, our desires. Fitna. But when you're upon the straight path and you've decided to get to that straight path only through these people, the Salaf, the Sunnah, then when you are faced with these difficulties, when that wind blows and that trouble comes and you get shaken and those leaves that fall off that tree, it's your sins just being shed. The blessing of Allah. Deen of Islam, blessing upon blessing upon blessing. And then he says, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when you're in that state, upon the Deen of Islam, when you're in that state, that even, that hadith, the sayings of some of the Salaf, even if a thorn was to prick you, even if you were to take a small fall, even if you were to suffer a fever, it's Allah expiating your sins. That's the stage that you reach. You're walking and that table hits you on the leg and the leg, it's Allah taking away sins from you. Allahu Akbar. We don't think about it like that. That plaster that you maybe have to put on, or maybe that fall that you've had, or whatever. It's only Allah taking away your sins from you because of the Deen of Islam. If you are truly upon that straight path and the Sunnah. Two things. The way of the Salaf. So much so, Ubay ibn Ka'b radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that if you're true to the Deen of Islam, a small effort, a small action would be so significant that you can't even begin to imagine how significant a tiny action could be. Save yourself from the fire of hell, even if it's by giving a tiny date stone. A small, tiny action. This is what Deen of Islam is. Tiny action, you could be saved from the fire of hell. May Allah make us from amongst those people. So the Shaykh, rahimahullah ta'ala alayhi, he speaks about the Deen of Islam. Another point about this is, and really what we're looking at is a bird's eye view of pages maybe 4, 5, just up to about 6, these 2-3 pages. The invitation to go towards the Sunnah and the necessity to stay away from bid'ah. The necessity to stay away from bid'ah. The deen is complete, you don't need bid'ah. Shatibi rahimahullah ta'ala and others, they say, bid'ah. Bid'ah what? Man ahdatha fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa rad. Whoever introduces something new, number one, definition. This is the best definition from the hadith. Whoever introduces something new, al-hidathu fi ad-din, he makes something new, he innovates something new. Fi amrina hadha, number two, in the religion, something new. Number two, in the religion. Ma laysa minhu, that which is not proven from it. Number three, Adam dalilu shari, has no evidence for it from the Quran and the Sunnah. Something new, number one. Number two, in the deen, in the religion, adding something new. Number three, that which has no evidence for it from the Quran and the Sunnah, no evidence for it from the Salaf. فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. Conclusion, equal signs, rejected. مَنْ عَمِلَ أَمَلًا لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرُنَا فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. Any action which the Prophet ﷺ didn't do because Allah SWT didn't command him, it's rejected. It's rejected. So this excludes then all those nonsensical arguments. Why do you wear glasses? Why do you wear a ring on your second finger and not the third finger and the fourth finger? Why do you wear Nike trainers, Adidas trainers? Why do you wear that shirt, that shirt? Why do you wear that color? Why do you drive that car? Why do you drive a BMW? Although, who drives a BMW? I don't. None. These arguments that you hear, the brothers and some sisters make, some sisters have become very shrewd, mashallah. The sisters of Ahlul Bidah, they, especially from the country that we're from, up north, it's ajib. And then they spread this to other sisters, mashallah. Sisters get so impressed. Look at that sister, she's mentioning some ayat of the Quran. Yes, but she manipulated them. She twisted them. It has nothing to do with why do you go on economy class on an airplane? Why do you drive a car? That's bid'ah. That's the answer to the bid'ah that they do. Why are you doing bid'ah? It's innovating in the religion, brothers. It's innovating, sisters, in the religion. Nothing to do with the dunya. In the religion. So that's very important for us to understand. Naam. if we move on to page number, I think it's the next page, 5 and 6. Now, towards the end of page 6, and then going on to page 7 and 8, the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala alayh, he mentions some of the greatness of our religion, some of the great points, some of the fadail, some of the things which make our religion, which is the deen. وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِ غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. The deen, if it's not followed, then it will not be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it? What are those characteristics? And what are the evidences for our religion? What are the evidences for the credibility, the validity, the acceptance of our deen? The Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions some of these things on these pages. So I'll just paraphrase a few points. Concerning the greatness of our deen and the greatness of the one upon whom the deen was sent, the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. There's no Prophet like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There's no deen like the deen of al-Islam. This deen, and when we go on to believing, how we believe in the books that were revealed, you'll see. There's no book like the Quran. There's no man like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's no deen like the deen of al-Islam. That's the bottom line. If someone was to ask you about the evidences for this religion, then we mentioned some of the following, and I'll try to paraphrase some of the kalam, some of the speech of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Uthaymeen from some of the books that he wrote in response to some philosophers and people from other religions who try to cast aspersions and doubts on the deen and the validity on the validity and the religion of al-Islam. Now, so one of the things that he mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala alayh. Now, he says that sound human nature, what we call sound human nature, this deen of al-Islam, it's in absolute conformity of sound human nature. Everyone who's on that sound human nature, that fitrah, that natural disposition upon which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him. Alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala. When Allah took a covenant from all of the arwah, all of the souls, all of the people. Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? Qalu bala. Allah, of course, who else is it other than you? We all confirm that. That's a different world before the creation of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam and the people that came onto this world. Every single one, the natural disposition that he has is to believe in Allah, to believe in the prophets and the messengers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send, the instructors, those who are the teachers, those who have been sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to believe in the commands and the prohibitions. And therefore, if anyone with a sound mind, that sound human nature, were to just take one step back and look at the Quran and the Sunnah, he would realize وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا, that every single part of this deen is based on two premises. It's based on two premises. The words of your Lord have been completed in truth and justice, in truth and fairness. Two things. The Ahlul Ilm explain this ayah, and they say that the deen has been completed, and the validity of this deen can be seen by the fact that all of the akhbar, all of the information that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us himself and through his Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, it's the absolute truth. Let anyone stand up and challenge that. What Allah has told us is not the truth. وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَدِيثًا وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا. Who's more eloquent in speech than Allah? Who's more truthful in speech than Allah? So everything we've been told about all the past nations, about what will occur. All the information is, if she can do that, why can't I give birth? Yani, this is not equality, this is dhulm. This is oppression. La tabdila li khalqillah. Don't change what Allah has given you. Don't alter with that. Don't play with that. And ultimately, everyone's going to have to answer to Allah. It's not my job or anyone's job here to point the finger at anyone, but it is what it is, and everyone would have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sound nature makes us understand that this deen is based on absolute truth and absolute fairness. And every child that's born, he's born on this religion. Every child that's born, he recognizes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows, he has ma'rifah of Allah. He knows who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Likewise, Ibn al-Qayyim and Ibn Uthaymeen, they say, they go through some of the rational evidences. They talk about the miracles of the prophets. The miracles that our Prophet ﷺ received, that's the second answer that we give them, is an evidence of the truthfulness of our religion. Of the truthfulness of our deen. Abdullah ibn Masud raziyallahu ta'ala anhu narrates the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, the companions wanted to make wudu one day, and they didn't have water. So they had only a little bit of water in a bowl. And the Prophet ﷺ said to the companions to bring the bowl of water to them, to him. He had the bowl of water and he put his blessed fingers in that water. The hadith mentions in Bukhari that 5 streams of water began to flow from his blessed fingers, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The deen of al-Islam. Witnessing something like that, out of the ordinary. This is not the norm. It's an evidence of the truthfulness of that man. It's an evidence against those who challenge him, against those who reject him. It's an evidence of the truthfulness of al-Islam. Likewise, the prophecies that the prophets and the companions narrated to us. So many of the prophecies, this will occur, that will occur, so on, so something will occur. And then it occurs. The Prophet ﷺ giving us so many prophecies, so and so thing will occur in the future, and then it occurs is an evidence that he is a prophet of Allah, is an evidence of the truthfulness of al-Islam. Question: does the Prophet ﷺ or any of the other prophets or messengers that came before him, do they have knowledge of the unseen? No. Just because they told us that this is what will occur, it doesn't mean that they have knowledge of the unseen. Why? 2 very broad and generic reasons. This is a matter of Aqeedah, by the way. To believe that someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of the unseen, it is, without making it technical, let's just say it's something that can take the person way out of the boundary of al-Islam. May Allah forgive us and save us from that. It's major. This is not something small or tiny. In other words, it's kufr al-akbar. La ya'lamu al-ghayba illa Allah. No one has a knowledge of the unseen except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then how did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam know that so and so thing would happen, and then it happens? It's a miracle that's specific to the prophets. The prophets were told. If by being informed of something, like the prophets were informed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of what would occur in the future, if that's what the definition of ilmul ghayb, knowledge of the unseen is, then today you and I are also mentioning that very same thing. The Prophet passed it on to us. Does that now mean we have knowledge of the unseen? Do we not say, brothers and sisters, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam will descend before the day of judgment? Do we not all believe that? Do we have knowledge of the unseen? No. It's not knowledge of the unseen. It's amba'ul ghayb, akhbarul ghayb, technical thing. Just because you're informed of something, that's not called knowledge of the unseen. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have ilmul ghayb. No one has the knowledge of the unseen except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our mother Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said, whoever says to you that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had knowledge of the unseen, he is lying. Sahih Bukhari, he is lying. Man haddathaka annahu ya'lamul ghayb faqad kadhab. Whoever says to you he has knowledge of the unseen, he has lied to you. May Allah save us from the liars. So these are broadly, brothers and sisters, some of the evidences of our deen, the deen of al-Islam. Na'am. So if you look at page number, we'll finish off for the first session, I think, in a few minutes, inshallah. If you look at page, moving on to page number 9 and 10 and 11. The Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, up until page number 12, he talks about the 5 pillars of Al-Islam. The 5 pillars of Al-Islam. You can see the first hadith is mentioned there from the reference that he's given, rahimahullah ta'ala, muttafaqun alayh, meaning is from Bukhari and Muslim. Islam is built on 5 pillars. And then the 5 pillars are mentioned: to believe in the testimony, to have the testimony, and to have firm belief in Allah being the only one worthy of worship, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam being the last and final prophet and messenger. To believe in the prayer, in the fasting, in giving the zakah, and to make hajj to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are able to do that. What does this word mean, to give the shahada, to have, or to make the testimony, to give the testimony? Something very specific. Something which many people have misunderstood. If you were to take a man or a woman off the street and just say to them on the street, repeat after me, La ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha, and he said, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abdu rasul, and he says it after you, does that make him into a Muslim just like that? No. He doesn't know what he's saying. He has no intent behind it. He doesn't know what the requirements are. So when we're giving testimony to these 2 greatest of all testimonies, the first being the testimony that there is no one worthy of worship except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is, as I explained at the beginning, affirmation and negation. This word testimony, giving the testimony, it's something which is firmly established in the heart without any hesitation or doubt, then it's articulated upon the tongue, and then shown through the actions. That's what actually broadly that word testimony, giving the shahada, means. It's something which is firmly established in the heart, and then he makes iqrar bil lisan, he makes the affirmation of it, he makes the tasdeeq of it upon his tongue. So if he just says it with his tongue, parrot fashion, not knowing anything about it, not believing it in his heart, that's not a testimony which is accepted in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are 7 or 8 conditions to La ilaha illallah. This is not the purpose of this class. Look them up, inshallah. Very important. That you must believe this statement, La ma'buda bihaqqin illa huwa, that he is the only one worthy of worship, without any partners. He has no partners in his rububiyyah, in his uluhiyyah, in his asma sifat. Look at that soon, inshallah. And then you must believe that in all truthfulness. You don't believe that any part of that is a lie. So this is a mafhum al-mukhalifa, accepting something, believing something, and then negating the absolute opposite of it. You must believe that with absolute love, muhabba, negating any kind of hatred for that statement in your heart. Any kind of hatred for that statement in your heart. You must believe that statement with absolute yaqeen, certainty, whilst negating any kind of the opposite of certainty, which is shak, doubt. Ashak, doubt. So this is how La ilaha illallah and the testimony of La ilaha illallah is accepted. And then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad Rasulullah, to believe that he was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the last and prophet, final messenger. To believe everything he's told us, all the akhbar, all the information he's told us. To make da'ah of him, to obey him. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ أَنْهُ فَانْتَهُ. To take everything he's given us, to abstain from everything he's told us to abstain from. To believe that he is as-sadiq al-masduq, the most truthful of the truthful. There isn't absolutely no, not even whilst joking did he lie, not even any indication of that. مَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. When he spoke through revelation. To believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired him, received revelation. The angel Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam descended upon him in different forms, different times. To believe that he conveyed everything exactly as he was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then to believe that he was a bashar, he was a human being, as opposed to those who believe that their prophets and messengers were part of Allah or had a share in the tawheed of Allah. That would invalidate Muhammad Rasulullah, and that would invalidate La ilaha illallah also. This is what the 2 shahadatain, the 2 testimonies of faith are. Then the salah, the fasting, the zakah, and we all know about that, walillahi alhamd. There's one thing about the salah though. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. The salah is something that should stop us from all kinds of wretchedness, all kinds of evil, all kinds of immorality. And that's immorality and wretchedness not only on the streets or when we're with our friends. It's immorality at home as well. Immorality, wretchedness, abuse when we're with our wives, with our children. That's what salah should do. The effects of salah are not just when we're in front of the public, brothers. The effect of our salah is when we're in the house as well. خيركم خير من أهلي. The best of you are those who are the best with their families, he alayhi salatu wasalam said. Al-Muslimu man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. The Muslim is a person from whom other people are safe from his wretchedness, from his tongue, from his abuse. Sibabul Muslimi fusuqun wa qitaluhu kufr. He doesn't abuse another Muslim, doesn't kill another Muslim, doesn't harm people, takes care of his neighbors, Muslim or non-Muslim, and non-Muslim. This is what Islam is. This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. To take care, humanity, of the people around you. To take care of the animals. This is Islam. A woman from the Bani Israel, she had a cat, she locked her up, Sahih Muslim. She chained up the cat, she didn't feed the cat. The Prophet ﷺ said she wouldn't even let the cat go out and eat the insects or the grass of the floor. She entered the fire of hell. A cat. Islam is not just something in the heart and we don't need to actualize it or implement it. No. So the salah then, and being saved from immorality and evil behavior and badness, it's not only when we're amongst our friends or in the public and we have to have a certain persona. MashaAllah, look at that Shaykh, look at all those hadiths he's mentioning. And then when Shaykh's in the house, he's an absolute, you can fill in the gaps. Yani, what kind of Islam is this? Salah. And what salah should mean for us. Fasting. One hadith about fasting. Prophet ﷺ said, whoever fasts the 3 days of Ayyamul Bid, what we call the white days, the 13th, 14th and 15th of every month, it's as if he's fasted his entire life or the entire year in one hadith. Look at the significance of that, brothers. 3 days. This is optional fasting. The fasting that's obligatory, the fasting of Ramadan, we know that. I don't need to labor that point. Optional fasting now. 3 days, it's as if it's fasted the whole year. Yani a lifetime, always, always, always in the state of perpetual fasting. There's a door of Jannah called Babur Rayyan. The door for the people who fast all the time. Allah make us go through that. How is that possible then? In the Quran it's mentioned about Man ja'a bil hasan falahu ashru amthaliha. Whoever brings a deed, it will be multiplied by 10. It will be multiplied by at least 10. 3 days of fasting multiplied by 10 is what? 30 days. 3 days a month is as if a person is fasting the entire month. Therefore, he fasts every 3 days of the month. It's as if he's fasting every single month of the year. Allahu Akbar. Allah, you are great. So fasting, now. So we're going to bring it to a close here for this session. We're going to continue inshallah at 8 o'clock. Now.
تولى العمر في سهو وفي لهو وفي خسر